All right, I know what you're thinking. I had to get everybody pissed off before I really started the video, because you already know with this new breaking news that Playboi Carti has officially passed Lil Uzi Vert for the first time in Spotify monthly listeners, whereas Cardi is sitting at 35.888 mil. It's got to be some demonic number. Triple eights, I'll never go to heaven's gates. Which leads me to Uzi, who's sitting at 35.74 mil. I think Uzi was at 36 last week, right after releasing his project Pink Tape. So these numbers are going to be inflated because every time you drop, obviously you put a budget into marketing and more eyeballs and more people listening to your music, especially having Travis Scott as the feature, as well as Nicki Minaj, Don Toliver, and some others, even though the other features probably didn't help much, but still maybe a couple 100,000 for Snow Strippers and Bring Me the Horizon. And so it is a big day for Playboi Carti subreddit. They're probably burning the whole site to the ground. It's almost like their Hiroshima nuclear bomb on Japan, aka the Lil Uzi Vert subreddit, because you know this war between the fan bases has been brewing for the past couple of years as they separate, because at one point in time they were twins. Both Uzi and Cardi fans were basically the same people because they made similar type music, although to this day I still think Uzi is more versatile, and overall I think he is the bigger artist if we're talking about their entire discography. But at this point in time, I do think actually that Uzi is still bigger, but Cardi is definitely creeping up there in clout and influence to the point where I think the next project, whatever it may be called, music or narcissist or antagonist, he very well may pass 165k first week, which would exceed Uzi's Pink Tape. And I don't know if Uzi's Barter 16 is going to touch those numbers just because it's a little bit more of a niche project, more like a mixtape. Love is Rage 3 though, that might hit 200k again. But with all that being said, I think the same principles kind of apply to Playboi Carti, in that yes, Cardi may have not dropped a project recently, like Whole Lotta Red was in late 2020 and it is 2023, so that is 3 years without any solo releases. However, I would not be analyzing the situation objectively if I didn't tell y'all that the only reason that Cardi is jumping up so significantly in monthly listeners on Spotify, which again we talk about all the time, isn't necessarily representative of how many streams they're getting personally, or even necessarily the size of the artist, because there are pop artists who get one breakout song on TikTok that gets, 10 million streams and all of a sudden they jump to 20 million monthly listeners, but like 2 months later they fall off completely to like a couple 100,000 monthly listeners. And so it is quite obvious that all of a sudden when Cardi dropped the one single with The Weeknd and Madonna called Popular, that was the soundtrack for, I think it's called The Idol, I think he jumped up from 16 million monthly listeners all the way up to like 33. And then he just featured on Travis Scott's Utopia on the song Fiend, which is actually charting pretty well, I think like top 10 on Billboard, which is a pretty big accomplishment, so I'm not trying to take that for granted whatsoever. But come on, it's with Travis Scott, who is arguably one of the biggest rappers in the world, selling 500k with Utopia, which is the top selling album of this year. So would Cardi really be hitting those numbers if he wasn't on the Travis Scott song? I do think that he would obviously go #1 with an album, but is he hitting top 10 on Billboard for a single? That is, I don't know. I just think that his music doesn't necessarily appeal to the mainstream to get to that level, but with the new sound that he's got, maybe. We literally have no idea. And so that jumped him up another 2 to 3 million monthly listeners, which allowed him to surpass Lil Uzi Vert finally for the first time in his career, which is hilarious in my opinion, because yes, it's a cool stat to analyze, but it's propped up by completely external factors. Whereas if we were to take both of their solo discographies and compare them, I'm talking about their entire careers, Uzi just has way more mainstream hits. I mean, Just Wanna Rock hit top 10, I believe, all by himself. So I know a lot of people were coming into this video thinking that I was gonna start chomping on Cardi's carrot, but hold your horses, buckaroo, because overall I do not think that Cardi has surpassed Lil Uzi Vert just yet, at least. Maybe an influence over the underground and getting people to dress like him, because this entire new generation on TikTok is definitely getting out of hand. But if you were to interview a random bystander on the side of the street asking them if they know who Cardi or Uzi is, most of them are going to be way more aware of who Lil Uzi Vert is. Not to mention he just has way bigger songs, with XO Tour Life approaching 2 billion streams on Spotify alone, just that song, as well as 20 Minutes approaching 1 billion itself. The Way Life Goes, you just can't compete with that. So yes, I do have to agree, Cardi may be hotter in the game right now, pause. But Uzi is still a living legend. But with all that being said, it's being boy Bobbalam signing off. Passing Ice JJ Fish in Spotify monthly listeners as well. Yes, I know. I might have to feature him on my next Uber ride. But y'all let me know in the comments what you think about this. Did Cardi finally technically surpass Lil Uzi Vert, or do you think monthly listeners is just a bad stat to look at? And of course, make sure to like and subscribe to the Bob Gang if you witty. Freestyle clap you. Nice.